Welcome to the Santa Clara City Council and Authorities Concurrent Meeting. I just want to let everyone know that's attempting to watch the meeting this evening that temporarily we hope, though there is no video at the moment, you may hear an audio, but we're hoping that it will be fixed soon and you'll be able to actually see us. So there's nothing wrong with your computer or your television. It is the problems on our end, excuse me, at the moment. So thank you. Could I ask that we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our statement of values? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interest of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call, Assistant City Clerk.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Mahan. Here. Councilmember Hardy.
Present.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Davis. Here. Councilmember Watanabe. Councilmember Shahal.
Here.
Mayor Gilmore.
Here.
Thank you. And may I read the AB 23 announcement?
Yes, please.
Members of the Santa Clara Stadium Authority, Sports and Open Space Authority, and Housing Authority are entitled to receive $30 for each attended meeting. Statement of Behavioral Standards. The City of Santa Clara has adopted a code of ethics and values and behavioral standards for public meetings to promote and maintain the highest levels of conduct. This includes mutual respect, robust discussion, and allowing city business to be done in an efficient and consistent manner. Please note that as a presiding officer, the mayor's direction in matters of process and decorum should be followed, and the use of the gavel indicates all conversations must conclude and everyone in attendance should come to order and attention. Welcome and thank you for your participation.
Thank you very much for that. We're going to move on to reports of action taken in closed session. City Attorney.
Yes, Madam Mayor, council members. At closed session on the single case that was before the council, the City Council and Stadium Authority Board voted unanimously with all 7 members present to approve the proposed settlement in the case of Nevarez versus City of Santa Clara and Santa Clara Stadium Authority, which is filed in the United States District Court, along with a side agreement with the 49ers Stadium Company and others. The case is a class action arising from ADA violations, that's Americans with Disabilities Act, at Levi Stadium. The settlement agreement and side agreement taken together require that the 49ers pay class damages in the amount of $24 million and take responsibility for compliance with class action noticing and other requirements. The 49ers will pay plaintiffs' attorney's fees in the amount of approximately $13.5 million. The 49ers will complete and pay for the remediation within the stadium site and in the main lot. The City and Stadium Authority will complete and pay for remediation to the surrounding public rights-of-way. The 49ers reserve their rights with regard to the stadium remediation items as well as part of the attorney's fees. The court will have oversight of the settlement during the 3-year compliance period, during which time the remediation work will be completed and approved. Remediation work will be completed in accordance with all applicable laws, and the settlement agreements will become public documents after they are signed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that report. Continuances and exceptions. Council, anyone have a continuance or exception? I have a request for a continuance, but it's related to the consent calendar, so I'll wait and pull that item and talk about it then. So next we're going to go into our special order of business this evening. And first we have a recognition of outgoing Senior Advisory Commissioner Barbara Bobby Estrada and Board of Library Trustee David Keogh. So is there a staff member here to start with the Senior Advisory Commission to talk about Bobby? I don't see anybody here, so Bobby, if you'd like to come forward. Do you have any of your fellow commissioners here with you this evening?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, well, thank you very much. You have years of service from 2012 to 2019. Would
Yes.
you like to say a few words before we give you your awards?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for the opportunity to serve in the City of Santa Clara on the Senior Advisory Commission. Working with a great group of people and staff, I felt that during that 8-year tenure that we were able to accomplish many different things during that period of time. I would like to encourage any other seniors that would like to be part of that team to be sure that they look for announcements. And I just want to thank the commission for all your assistance and guidance to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Davis.
Bobby,
Yes?
you did a great job on the Senior Advisory Commission. We rotate, but I enjoyed my time with you. And when you're chairing, you were very courteous, you're compassionate. You got out what you needed for the seniors to be accessible to whatever. And after we had the accessibility needs assessment done, I think those 5 points that you guys had, that was remarkable, and that was under your leadership. So I thank you, and I wish you well on your next journey, but don't forget, there's other commissions. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I also want to say, and I see our director, Tishara, would like to say something too, but I wanted to say that I had the opportunity to attend the meetings as well, representing the council. And you were the chair of the commission when I was attending. It was amazing, first of all, how you ran that meeting, how you got everything. You were so organized and so focused, and I could really tell how much you really cared about the seniors in our community and making life better for them. So thank you so much. As Councilmember Davis said, there's other opportunities for you. I hope that you will at least look at what else is out there, because you have really been a phenomenal commissioner for representing the city, and we really appreciate all that you've done for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Teixeira?
So I want to take the opportunity to say thank you to Bobby. A couple of the things not mentioned yet, but are of significance while you were on the commission for 8 years. 8 of my over 10 years here that I've known her, she was instrumental in bringing forward the senior needs assessment and working on that, and working collaboratively with other agencies, not only staff but throughout the county, in bringing that forward. So that was an important step. And in fact, I think the 2010 was the original needs assessment, the first one, and then she was there still to take on the second one, which was an update of that. And then the other item is the World Health Organization's Age-Friendly Cities Initiative, which helps us, again, as staff in the different departments, look at needs of the senior community through the lens of 8 different domains. And so Bobby, again, was instrumental in making sure that we stuck to using those lens in our looking at programming and services throughout the city. So again, from Parks and Recreation to you, I want to say personally and professionally, thank you on behalf of the city.
Thank you, and I think, thanks for bringing that up, Director Teixeira, because Bobby was part of probably one of the hardest working commissions that we've had in the city. It was amazing the number of things you all had on your plate, and how busy you were and how active and engaged you were. So thank you so much for that. So Bobby, if you'd like to join us down here, we'd like to give you your recognitions and get a picture taken with you, if that's okay with you. Council. Both Councilmember O'Neill and the city attorney reminded us that Bobby also served on the districting committee last year before our November 2018 election, and that was a really hardworking and a hardworking committee that had to help create districts in Santa Clara for the election, and you had a lot of work in a really, really short period of time. So it was almost a thankless job, and you did it so well and professionally. So thank you as well for that. We really appreciate it. All right, next, we have our Board of Library Trustees, David Keough, who served from 2016 to 2019. Is there someone that would like to talk a little bit about David? And then I'm sure we're not going to be shy up here to talk about David either. So welcome, City Librarian.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. I'm delighted to be here, but very sad that our board member is resigning. He has been a new force in our board and provided a real fresh perspective, but not only fresh, but diverse. Being a young father with 2 small children, he had a user experience that he could communicate to us that helped us immensely in our programming and where our vision was taking us and the library in general. But he was also very conscientious and logical and to the point, and he really he served as chair, and he was a real team player, and he made our board congeal and get together and be the driving force it is today. We're very sorry to see him go. But David, come on up here. I know some of our board members would like to say a few words. Jan?
You'd like to introduce them as well?
Yes,
Got 'em.
okay.
David, you brought your entourage today. Okay.
Jan Hintermeister, Debbie Triforos, Steve Ricosa, and Lee Brofman is at a literacy event tonight, so she couldn't be here.
I just wanted to express what a pleasure it's been to serve with David. Even though it seems like a short time, 3 years, David had a big impact in those years. He brought us great ideas, great clear vision. As chair, provided excellent leadership for us and had a great even temperament. It just helped with everything.
Oh, it helped with all of you on that committee, right?
Yeah. But we're all going to miss David, and I know moving is, I think, a real loss for Santa Clara, because David just was just an excellent contributor to our board. So thanks, David.
Anyone else like to say? Well, while you're here, okay.
Well, I'd just like to say that I know it was a difficult decision for David, and he made it because of his kids, and I deeply respect him for that, and I wish him all the best and his kids' education up in San Mateo County. So thank you, David, and congratulations.
Me, the newest board member. I'm hoping this isn't my fault. No, I really appreciate him. He made me feel very welcome. He explained things when I wasn't really sure what was going on, and he's really going to be missed. He's a great guy.
Thank you, Debbie. Councilmember Davis, would you like to say something?
David, when we interviewed you, you were the rock star. You had ideas that we would never think of, and we get to a point, but we don't, we listen to everything you had to say, and you were you were the guy. But I'm really sorry that you have to leave, because I can't say come to another commission, because you're actually moving away, and that's why you're leaving us. So I wish you well on your new journey and with your kids and stuff, but what you did to that library trustee group, they're very happy. They're sad. It's bittersweet for them tonight, but we wish you all the best.
And thank you, David. Even though you were here just 3 years, you really left a legacy for us. And I remember distinctly when we had the placemaking event at Mission Library, and we all had ideas, and you just had ideas that were just so fresh and so, forward thinking. Because of your experience in life and being a young father. It was so wonderful to hear that. We're really going to miss you, but you've really left a mark here in Santa Clara, and we're really going to miss you. But good luck to you in San Mateo. I'm sure, our loss is their gain. But if you come back, please come back here, because you really have made a real difference for us here in our library system. So thank you so much. Would you like to say something? Please come forward.
Cool. No, thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve on the board. I applied. I actually wasn't very sure what would happen. I clearly was the least experienced of the group, but I'm very glad I was able to make an impact, and I feel very fortunate to have worked with Hillary. She's a great librarian, very forward-thinking, and the rest of the trustees. It's been so like great for me to learn from them and then be able to hear their diverse set of opinions. And I hope during my time here I was able to bring forth some forward-thinking ideas as far as the library and its evolution, and think of it as social infrastructure instead of just books. And that's really a testament to Hillary and her staff and what they do there. So I'm very sad to leave the city, as well as the trustees and our great library, of course, but had to do it for my kids.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill, and then Watanabe after that. Oh, is that?
So just, I would just, once again, I wanted to thank, I think you can be an example to the younger members of our community, that we really need some of the young parents with families to come and try out for the commissions, because that brings a perspective. A lot of times, I'd say that, we tend to trend a little older on a lot of the commissions, just I think in part because of where people are with their lives, with their time. So I tremendously appreciate that you made this a priority for this, to serve the city when I know you have young children. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, David, I just wanted to express my thanks as well. I remember the night that we interviewed for the vacancy, and what just a wonderful job you did. And I remember, I'm glad that the city librarian brought up about how you were a young father, with 2 young kids. And I remember that was the thing that stuck out for me. And I just thought, wow, what a perspective and new perspective you would be bringing, to the commission. So, but, being a former library trustee myself, I know what a great group of people they are, and you just earn and learn so much more about the library that you never ever thought you would in your life. So I would, if in parting, I hope that you'll get a library card that never expires, so you know you're always welcome back to the city of Santa Clara.
I've got mine.
Good, good.
All right, thank you. David, if you'd like to join us, come forward. Library trustees, Hillary, if you'd like to join us up here for a photo as well with the council. And I want to remind everyone, you can still see this meeting on Comcast Channel 15 and hear the meeting on Facebook and YouTube. All right. Now, Jan, I had you under public comment on this item. Did you want to make another comment? All right, you have 20 seconds left. Oh, okay. Is there any other member of the public that would like to comment on either of those? All right, very good. Now we're going to move on to the consent calendar. All items are approved with one motion unless items are pulled for discussion. We'll start with Councilmember Vice Mayor Mahan.
Yes, I believe I have to recuse myself on item 2G. I think I'm within 500 feet of that address, 908. Yeah, did I say 2G? Yes. So I think I'm within 500 feet of 908 Fremont Street.
Okay, we'll note that for the records, Assistant City Clerk. Councilmember Chahal?
I would like to pull item 2J, please.
To which one?
J.
J. 2J? Okay. 2J, okay. And I would like to pull item 2E for discussion, and also I would like to pull item 2L to request a continuance on 2L. All right, any other council member want anything continued?
Motion to
or
approve.
discussed?
Sorry.
Would any member of the public would like to pull a consent calendar item? Okay, seeing
Motion to
none.
approve the balance of the consent calendar.
So there's a motion to approve the balance, noting the abstention on Vice Mayor Mahan's item.
There's 2G.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, next we have public presentations, and this would be for any item that's not on the agenda. Do we have any cards? No public presentation cards. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak on anything that's not on the agenda? Please come forward. Okay, seeing none. We're going to move down to consent items pulled for discussion. We'll start with your item, Councilmember Chahal, and that was item 2J. And that item is action on an agreement for services with House Keys, Inc. for administration of the city's affordable rental program. Councilmember Chahal.
Thank you, Mayor. The only reason I pulled this item is so that I just want to let our residents know about this item. Like, not many of our residents are clear about the affordable rental programs and how the city run it. So for the sake of information, I'm trying to highlight that we are getting into agreement with House Keys, and down the line, House Keys will be helping us to take care of all the application process, maintain the wait list, maintaining the marketing collaterals, orientation classes for prospective applicants for the affordable rental programs, and they will be updating the website on that too. So keep an eye on that. House Keys will be taking care of those rental program issues. And I do have a couple of questions on that for the staff. My first question is, I know they will be maintaining the website separately, but would they be coordinating with the city staff to maintain the like parallel website, so that if anybody going to the city website can have access to all the rental program, how the process runs, as well as their site?
Yeah. Jonathan Veach, Housing Manager. Yeah, so we're excited about the House Keys proposal because with the inclusionary housing ordinance, we have a lot of market rate developers who are going to be managing the affordable housing units. So we want to make sure they're trained and oriented with how to administer the program. Longer term, the hope is to have a website that developers can use to upload all of the tenant information, because they have to income certify W-2s and all sorts of information. And then staff can also access to view our portfolio, to analyze all of the projects, make sure rents are in compliance. And then ultimately, the long-term vision is that residents can also use the portal to upload their information so they can submit pay stubs and W-2s to make it easier for them as well. So we're kind of viewing it as a phased process over time. Initially, we want access to the website, and then longer term, it would be opened up to residents as well.
Thank you. And my next request is, there's an application fee of $75 for all the applicants, which is as per the contract, as per the Exhibit B, I think. Can that be lowered? I know it's not a big amount, but anybody, the dire situation we are facing with the high rents and other stuff for the needy families, can we look into that if we can lower it to notional $10 or something?
Sure. So that fee is only if House Keys was actually doing the full compliance, meaning that they would receive the application, do the income qualification, run the credit check. So the fee is really the pay for the credit check that tends to be standard with property managers. So in most cases, the developer will contract with the property manager and they'll collect the credit check fee and the application fee, not House Keys. But in the event that House Keys was appointed as the property manager and the lease-up agent, they would be allowed to collect a fee to compensate for credit checks and other fees.
Thank you.
Yeah.
With that, Madam Mayor, I can make a motion to approve that.
Let me ask if there's any other questions from anyone or anyone from the audience have questions on this? All right, Councilmember Tall, a motion?
Motion to approve.
Got to make it first.
You did.
Oh.
I did.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. Thank you, and that passes unanimously, and thank you, Jonathan, for the report. Okay, the first item I pulled was item number 2E, and it's action on resolutions dedicating portions of city-owned land for use as a street and utility easement and underground electric easement adjacent to Tasman Drive next to the Santa Clara Youth Soccer Park and adjacent to Great America Parkway at the closed Santa Clara landfill. So I pulled this item because there's a buzz going around about that slip ramp and the wall that's going to be built right adjacent to the soccer park. And I didn't see it in the report, but I wanted to make sure that when we adopt and pass these resolutions, that there's going to be a certain amount of an artwork or an art project that the developer has talked to me about doing on this blank wall, that because it does cut off, it really cuts the soccer park and it really is unattractive. So some kind of artwork that that the related company would be funding for us to put on that wall. So I didn't want to lose sight of that fact, that we want to make sure that this is included in our discussions, and that when that wall is eventually built for the term of the related lease, which is 99 years, that we have something that the children in our community can see that's attractive besides a blank concrete wall there. So I don't know, is there a report? I see our Director of Public Works, welcome.
Yep, good evening, Mayor,
and thank you for the
Council.
Pictures, too.
Yeah,
so
Craig
can
Mobeck,
see.
Director of Public Works. So just wanted to run through in the photos attached, there's actually 2 walls. And so on the one here is the wall adjacent to the slip ramp that's actually in the public right-of-way as it exists right now. And this is the wall that, as you referenced, we're talking with Related right now about artwork. So staff saw this as an opportunity to put artwork on the wall. We have been working with Related, and they're going to be providing us some concepts that we can go through, ultimately bring to you in terms of what that artwork would look like. And then if you can scroll down on that PDF, this is the second wall that's actually in the easement that's up for discussion tonight. This is a smaller wall than the one that I just showed you, and this is in a landscape area. And this wall will have vines and blend in with the landscape area up on the slope. So I just wanted to be clear that there will be a wall that's landscape that you wouldn't see, but then going back to the other slide showing the larger wall, this is the one that we're talking about with artwork.
Okay, so we want to just make sure that at least our Parks Commission and that the city, we have input as to what happens on that wall when it goes forward. So if we could make that just part of the motion, city manager.
Yeah, if you want to make that part
Wait,
of the
what is
motion.
your title today?
Oh,
Thank you.
I'll be the
Oh.
Assistant City Manager for now and the Chief Electric Utility Officer later, so.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say,
I'll
what
see
are
if you can guess
today?
which
Okay,
one's
thank
which
you.
one. Yeah, so
Thank you.
if you want to put that in the notes, that would be great. We are working with Related, and we're hoping that we can move forward as quickly as possible, and we had communicated to them that there would be a city approval process as part of any artwork that's
Great.
identified.
Thank
So
you.
we had
But
communicated that to them.
That we anticipate the artwork will happen in some form, whether it's, a static or interactive, some kind of artwork. And we anticipate it's going to happen that will be funded by the Related company as well.
That's correct,
Okay.
yes.
So whoever's making that motion, if we can
Oh,
put
okay.
that in there.
Can I make that
Thank
motion
you.
then?
Yes, and we can have discussion.
Greg, before you go away, how tall is that wall?
So the walls vary a little bit, but the wall currently in this view gets up to about 18 feet high, so fairly high. The wall that's landscaped is smaller, so the majority of it is under 10 feet tall. And it's on a slope, so when you put that landscaping in it, it kind of blends in with the surrounding environment.
Okay.
This
yeah.
one in the view right now is up to 18 feet, much bigger, taller
How
wall.
how long is it?
So the one in this view right here is over 300 feet long.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I would like to make a motion, a staff recommendation with the, how do we put it? Is it a development agreement?
No.
It's not part of that. With the contingency that they will take care of the aesthetic look and make sure they pay for it.
I think what the discussion was related to ensuring that they develop the appropriate artwork for the wall, not, go through a city process for approval and finance both the construction and the maintenance for the year of the lease.
Okay, did you get all that, Nora?
For the term of the lease.
Yeah, for the term of the lease, thank
The
you.
term of the lease.
Okay, so that's the added part from the city manager, assistant city manager.
Is there a second?
Second.
Vice Mayor Mahan and then Councilmember O'Neill.
So I just want to clarify, because Mayor referenced interactive art, and so I just came back from Chicago. There are places in Chicago where they have urban artists doing murals, and they change from time to time, and they're absolutely wonderful. And with 300 feet, you could have 30 artists doing urban murals, and those can change over time, especially over the term of the lease, to be relevant, to be upbeat, to be, reflective of the moment, moment by moment, reflective of the community. So is that something that we can consider, or are we just considering, permanent art that would never change?
We're taking your feedback. We don't have a specific direction. We're open to any options. Of course, there'll be a process for it. So any feedback we receive today is something that we can consider as well.
Well, I would
Vice Mayor Mahan, that's exactly what I was thinking
Yeah,
about.
I would like to give
Yeah.
that feedback, and in addition, give the feedback that we should work with the art community in our immediate area, but certainly within the Bay Area, to come up with ideas and proposals for that kind of that kind of a urban mural
Interactive.
concept, yeah.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Just wanted to say that since we're at the point where we're beginning the work and we're doing the slip ramps and everything, I don't want us to forget, and actually there is interest in starting work on the design work on the multimodal station, which will also be right there at that location. So I just want to put that out there because I'm going to be following up to see if we can get that started now that we're doing some of this other stuff and not wait to phase 2.
We can put artwork all over that, too.
Yeah.
I met with a group yesterday. They wrap buildings and they put banners, the big, large banners on buildings. But I could see, I really don't want to see at the soccer park like a mural that's there, and then 5 years from now, it looks old and tired. And I mean, it's going to be a long-term lease for Related. It's 99 years. We want to make sure that it's freshened, throughout the term of the lease by using our local talent and making things that are, just a little bit more lively than just a static piece of art. So anyways, thank you. We have a motion and a second on that. We just want to make sure we're able to weigh in this part in the future. Councilmember Watanabe.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Would they be able to utilize both sides of the wall, or is it just one side, or has a decision been made?
It's just one side of the wall. Yeah, it's a retaining wall, so it's retaining on the other side.
Okay, okay. And then currently, I've noticed, just a green fence has been put up there in the meantime? Or, I didn't know if it was to keep people from walking down that slope to
I
the,
don't know if, I would ask staff if they know. If not, we can follow up and let you know,
Okay.
let the council
I
know with
didn't know if
follow
it
up.
was related.
So I was just checking with Ally, who's very familiar with the project. It is a construction fence.
Great, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ally. All right, so we have a motion and a second on that. Any member of the audience would like to weigh in on this? Please come forward. All right, we have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. It's the Parks and Recreation Commission that we send this back to. Okay. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item I pulled is item 2L, action on a resolution approving an affordable housing agreement with Zane Partners, Z-A-E-N Partners, LLC, for the project located at 2310 Calle de Mundo. The reason I pulled this item, or staff, did you want to make a report first on this, or should I tell you the reason why I'm pulling it and asking for an extension? The reason I'm pulling this item is that this project is located in Tasman East. It's going to be one of the many high-density residential projects that it's going to happen in Tasman East. And they are required to set aside 10% of the project for affordable housing. They're proposing to build 5% for affordable housing if the proposal is that housing is for very, very low income. So it would be less number of units because the affordability is going to be for very, very, very low income. And that's all well and good, except for the fact that I would like to see how this affects, if we make this decision, how this will affect all the other projects that we are going to consider coming forward for the number of units that we have in Tasman East and then Freedom Circle, some of the other projects that we have. If we do it for this project, are we prepared to do it when the other developers come forward and ask for other projects? And how does that affect our RENA numbers and other things? So I didn't see any of that in the report, and this is on the consent calendar. So I was going to ask the council if they would agree to continue it so that staff can come back and give us that, because I think that this decision has a bigger effect on what happens in the future. If other developers look at this and use it as a precedent setting. So that was the reason I wanted to pull it. City Manager?
When the item comes back, we'll propose to do a staff presentation on that item, and what I'm hearing is that you would like it to have in context of what's happening overall in Tasman East and how you might want to look from policy direction at all affordable housing and that total units that will be occurring in that area. So to provide that context for the council so you can make a decision not just on this project, and obviously you can make decisions as they come in, but what the context will be for the future projects that come in. So give
And
you
if
that
they
overall
want to ask for the same thing,
Okay.
the same kind of reduction.
What does that mean?
What does
Okay.
it mean for us, and really providing the number of affordable units that we need to provide, but how is that going to look? Because we have, in many cases, potentially thousands of units that may be, subject to something like this. So do you know when, should we refer it just for a future council meeting? Do you want us
Yeah, what,
to
I
say
think if you refer
specifically?
to a future council meeting, it would be best that way we can find the right agenda as well, where kind of it fits with the different council items that are already in place.
But I don't want to hold this group up either, so as quickly as we can get it back.
We'll do it as quickly as we can.
Okay. Is there a motion for that?
Motion to approve staff recommendation. No, sorry, motion for continuance to a future date, sorry.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, can I make a comment?
Is there a second first? Before, motion second. All right.
Madam Mayor, just would like to clarify, are we deferring or
Continuance, sorry.
continuance?
All right, there's a motion and a second. Councilmember Chahal.
Thank you for pulling that item, Madam Mayor. And I do have some other concerns which can be looked on when we are revisiting this thing. The amount of per square feet rate, like $4.35 per square feet, to me, it seems to be high comparing to what we have, and that comes out to a subsidy of $3 million extra to the city. So I would like, when we are revisiting it, let's do that number correctly, like where did that number come from? And if we can look into more details for that number. And I agree, like if we set up this precedent, like we're reducing from 80 units to 30 units, and it worth looking into it, how we go forward on that.
I'm sure staff has noted your question.
Thank you.
It's knocked me out. Okay. I'm sorry, I just was knocked out of my system here. Did it by itself. Is there any other council members? If not, any member of the public would like to speak to the continuance? All right, seeing none. We have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. I didn't read, it went up pretty quickly, I'm sure. Can you read the motion? It said approving. Did it say continuance? Okay. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. So that takes us to all the items that were pulled from the consent calendar. The next item we have is a public hearing on amendments to the city code related to massage establishments. So I'm going to open the public hearing. We have a recommendation. Yes, please come forward. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Wahid Kazem. Along with me for this presentation tonight, I have my partners Rena Brio from Community Development, as well as Alexander Abbey from the City Attorney's Office. We're back to report to you from direction you gave us at a prior study session regarding the proposed amendments pertaining to the massage ordinance. Prior to beginning the presentation, I want to just refresh your recollections on some history pertaining to the massage industry. Prior to 2009, the regulation of massage-related business fell under the purview of local municipalities. However, in 2009, the state legislature passed SB 731, which created the California Massage Therapy Council. And that organization took over statewide massage regulation. That lasted until 2015, when Assembly Bill 1147 created the Massage Therapy Act, which reverted control of the massage establishments back to the local municipalities. This included land use issues, business licensing, health and safety regulations, as well as permitting. I'd also like to note that acupuncture has always been state licensed, but has never been regulated by the city. I'd like to introduce my co-presenter, Rena Brio, to tell you a little bit about the regulatory history with regards to land use.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. So in 2015, the city adopted Section 18.104, massage establishments. And at that time, there was a use permit that was created as a process to approve massage use, as well as some locational restrictions which are still in effect today. So those restrictions prohibit massage from being located within 500 feet of single-family residences, schools, state licensed daycare facilities, hotels, motels, bowling alleys, and another massage establishment. So when you see what that means on a map, the hatched areas indicate the prohibited areas for massages to locate today. So this is the northern portion of the city. This is the southern portion of the city. So a large area of the city is prohibited from massage establishments being permitted. And what you'll also note by these maps is that the few areas of the city where massage can occur are in our industrial areas. As we'll get into a little bit later on, industrial areas aren't the most ideal areas for massage to occur. And so what we're proposing with the proposed ordinance, including input that we've gotten from the city council at a previous study session, is focusing the use on areas that would have more visibility and pedestrian activity.
So continuing with a little bit more on the timeline of how we've gotten here now. As Rena mentioned, back in 2015 with the adoption of 18.104, Council also approved a 2-year amortization period allowing the existing massage establishments with non-conforming use to continue operating. The amortization period was set to expire in November of 2017. However, in October of 17, the council extended the amortization period to December of this year, 2019. Staff was directed by council to reevaluate the massage establishment ordinance and zoning regulations. The police department conducted compliance checks in October of 2018. We visited 71 of the massage and acupuncture establishments in town. We found 2 massage locations with overt violations. Both of those establishments were issued citations. Their licenses were revoked. They did appeal that decision and the revocation was upheld. Both businesses were ordered to cease operating in the city. Back in November of 2018, we held a proposed regulation informational meeting for the public, specifically for the folks that own massage establishments. We invited them to the police department and held a informational meeting for them. City Council provided feedback to us at a study session on proposed amendments to Chapter 5 and 18 of the City Code back in November of 2018. The proposed regulations, informational meetings were held April 22nd and 23rd. The 23rd meeting was done also in Mandarin to provide some greater understanding for our community. In May of 2019, Community Development took this issue to the Planning Commission as well. To give you an understanding of where we're at versus where we were in 2015, this slide shows you how many established businesses we had with valid permits in 2015. As you can see, we had 51 massage establishments and 59 acupuncture establishments, versus today we have 15 massage establishments and 52 acupuncture businesses in town. For the recommended changes, I'll have Rena come back up.
Thank you.
So we're going to start with land use. So taking input from the existing business owners as well as the council, recognizing many of these are small business owners, that's going to create a strong hardship for them if they had to move locations. We are proposing to allow for legal non-conforming, meaning grandfathering in existing businesses in their current locations if they meet massage licensing requirements. They're free of any repeated violations or criminal citations, and that they meet all requirements for the massage ordinance except for the locational requirements that we are proposing. For new establishments, we really want to locate these businesses in the right spaces where there's a lot of visibility, a lot of pedestrian activity. We're proposing to limit massage uses specifically to mixed-use, commercial, or planned development zoning districts that allow for commercial uses, and to eliminate the use permit process, because we really think putting them in the right locations and putting enough controls so that they can actually be revoked pretty quickly, that will be the appropriate kind of regulatory process. And that we would also require a zoning verification issued by the planning division so that we know these locational requirements would be met. The new massage establishments would be asked to be located in the following locations: in hotels of 100 rooms or more, 100 guest rooms or more. And where this comes from is actually straight from the Planning Commission recommendation. They saw hotels as a great opportunity to provide an additional service to their customers. And so we've added that into the recommendation. On sites that would be 10 acres that are contiguously functioning with either mixed use, commercial, and by contiguously functioning, we mean shared parking and circulation, and that there would be a minimum of 20,000 square feet of retail space, or in areas that would be employment centers that have 500 employees or more. And actually, in the time that we've been bringing this ordinance forward, we have encountered a future potential employer to Santa Clara who is interested in taking advantage of this. So if we map these sites, we have approximately 10 sites in the city that meet that locational criteria. This is a dynamic criteria, so we may approve future development that meet this criteria. And this is the northern portion of the city and the southern portion of the city. We're showing the 15 existing massage sites as well as the sites that meet the locational criteria that we've outlined. And I'm going to turn this over to Assistant City Attorney Abby.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm just going to say a few words about the text changes to the city code. The proposed amendments before you tonight are going to affect two titles in the code, Title V, Business Regulations, and Title 18, Zoning. And as Ms. Brio just mentioned, we're getting rid of the 500-foot minimum distance from residences, schools, and other sensitive uses. Instead, we're going to apply these new locational restrictions she mentioned, two of which you already saw last year at your November study session, and the third of which the Planning Commission recommended at their May 22nd meeting. They recommended that the City Council adopt all three of these locational provisions. And as Ms. Brio just showed you, this will result in a smaller number of potential locations for massage establishments, but we're also streamlining the process by getting rid of the CUP requirement. And again, we're not going to shut down any legally operating businesses as long as their permits are in effect and they have paid their fees and there are no criminal activities going on. They can continue in perpetuity. We're going to delete the amortization clause from the zoning provisions. The rest of the changes are going to be in Title V, which are the business regulations section, or in the policies of the police department. The ordinance before you is 40 pages. I apologize for that. A lot of it is repetition and pretty dry, so I'm just going to hit a few highlights for you. First, we're changing the appeal process for revocations. In our existing ordinance, we actually have the city manager conduct hearings when there's an appeal of a revocation. That's proven to be a significant administrative burden on the city manager's office. And we also wanted to provide some uniformity among appeals of revocations throughout the city code. So now we're simply going to refer to our standard appeal process in Title II of the city code. We're actually in the process of updating that as well. Next month, you're going to see an update to our standard appeal process. Once that's all done, the appeals will be conducted by a hearing officer rather than the city manager's office, and not by the city council either. Second, we added some visibility requirements. If you have a massage establishment that has a lobby with a window facing a public street, now you're not going to be able to obstruct it with curtains or closed blinds or tents or any other material that blocks the view of the lobby. Third, there's going to be, for the last 5 or 6 years, state law has required a human trafficking notice be placed in the front of massage establishments that says basically that there is, if you're aware of anybody that's the victim of human trafficking, here's a toll-free number to call. Our new ordinance makes posting this notice a requirement of the city permit as well. And if you don't post it, it's grounds for revocation. Next, we strengthened what I call the scorched earth clause. If you're not familiar with that, that's the provision in the city ordinance that says if your permit is revoked, you can't operate a massage establishment on that site for a period of time. You can't operate it no one can operate it. And the idea behind this is it prevents somebody from having their permit revoked, and then the next day, a new massage establishment opens on the same site, maybe with the same name and the same therapist, but just the best friend of the prior owner. So scorched earth clause says that no one can operate a massage establishment at that site for a period of time. Under the existing ordinance, that period is 1 year. With the new ordinance, we're strengthening that to 5 years. We're also beefing up our permit process. Captain Kazem will be talking more about this in a minute. Some of this is in the ordinance. Some of it's simply going to be with some enhanced procedures on the part of the police department. They're going to take a more aggressive posture towards some of the initial investigation and follow-up checks, including adding a 6-month compliance check to the process. And when it comes time to renew a permit, the renewal won't be approved until the police department determines that the establishment complies with all applicable laws and that there hasn't been a pattern of practice of illegality by the employees either. The owner is responsible for the actions of the employees. And as a result of this enhanced compliance checks and back-end work, we will be increasing fees so that we have full cost recovery. I did want to make a special word about acupuncture. A lot of acupuncture establishments offer massage as an ancillary yet supportive practice to acupuncture, excuse me. And just to clarify, if you have a state license to perform acupuncture, you are legally authorized to perform massage without a massage establishment permit. But that being said, occasionally we get a massage establishment that tries to brand itself an acupuncture clinic to try to get out of compliance with our local regulations. So under our ordinance, if anyone other than a state licensed acupuncturist attempts to give massage on the premises, then the entire establishment becomes subject to our massage regulations and will have to get the standard massage establishment permit and go through the standard approval process. This was true under our existing ordinance as well, but we tightened the language a bit under our new ordinance. One thing that hasn't changed for both existing and new massage establishments, the chief of police still has the authority to suspend or revoke a permit if any code requirements are not met. But again, there's going to be a streamlined appeal process to a hearing officer. And as Ms. Brio mentioned earlier, we will be grandfathering in existing establishments that currently have permits. The new ordinance won't require them to relocate. If they do want to relocate, they will lose that legal nonconforming status and they will have to locate in one of those specific areas that you saw on the map earlier. And with that, I believe Captain Kazem's going to talk about the new processes.
Thank you.
So I want to tell you guys a little bit about the process changes within the police department, the permits unit that we are proposing for you to consider. First of all, for the process for new establishments, they would apply for a zoning verification application to confirm that the location confirms with regulations to make sure that it's within the areas that they're allowed to be in. They would also apply for a massage establishment permit with the police department. With regards to our proposed enforcement model, we are proposing that we will conduct site visits to all acupuncture establishments and massage. At the time of renewal and new application, we'll hold an in-person meeting with the business owners. We'll provide an interpreter if needed. We'll provide them a physical copy of Santa Clara Code 5.40. We'll obtain a signed acknowledgement, a receipt for that code section and associated regulations. We'll internally document our meeting, ensuring that they understand the rules. We'll then conduct compliance inspections or compliance checks. Unannounced visits anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks prior to renewal date for any existing establishments, 6 months after renewal or permit issuance, as well as internally documenting the outcome of those visits and what we found. Any violations that we come across will be analyzed for administrative sanctions versus criminal. We'll be looking for issues that could lead to suspension or revocation hearings, and additional compliance checks to ensure that prior violations have been corrected will also be done. So what we would like to recommend tonight is to introduce the proposed amendments to Chapter 5.40 and the Planning Commission's recommended amendments to Chapter 18.34, 18.36, 18.42, 18.56, 18.70, and 18.104 of the Santa Clara City Code related to massage establishments. Alternatives to the recommendation would be the first one again, or a second one of any other action that you all as a body see fit. At this point, I will open it up for any questions for any of us.
Yes, I have quite a few. Vice Mayor Mahan, and then
yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Davis after that.
I appreciate the addition of the hotels. I think that's a good addition, but did you consider, two questions, did you consider gyms that also may have a massage therapist on site? And I'm assuming this doesn't apply to physical therapists or chiropractors who might themselves administer massage therapy, but would it apply to their offices if they had a massage therapist within their office?
So I'll ask Rena to come back up.
We didn't consider gym uses, so if that's something that council would like to provide a specific exclusion for, similar to hotels. Otherwise, the regulations would still request that they be located in the large 10-acre commercial sites. So that's something for the council to consider to provide us feedback on. And in terms of physical therapists or other, medical licensed practitioners, the permit will not actually, Assistant City Attorney Abby is providing me the section of the code that explicitly states when a permit is not required. And that includes when physicians, surgeons, chiropractors, osteopaths, nurses, or any physical therapists who are duly state licensed to practice in their respective positions in California. And that is specifically for those practitioners who are licensed, but if they do take on other individuals, that would, as proposed, be triggering the massage establishment permit.
Vice Mayor, is that it? I can't. Yes? Okay. Councilmember Davis and then Councilmember O'Neill.
Thank you, Rena, for answering that question, because I get physical therapy for my neck, and so they do have massage, and it's a chiropractor. So thank you, Xander, for bringing that to my attention, because that was going to be a big question for you. I think I have a comment for Xander. I think you put some teeth into this upgrading from A to B, which was awesome, because I think that it's going to take away a lot of this human trafficking thing that's going on, and I like the teeth. I mean, when you put something together, you really put it together. So I appreciate it very much, and I think that's all my questions. Thank you.
Councilmember O'Neill and then Watanabe after that.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like we're having a little bit of a change of thought, because in the past, it's been the idea has been, maybe we isolate this activity and, then, that somehow that's like protecting the rest of the community. But it sounds like, thinking back to my planning commission days where we had some very interesting things come up about what was going on in some buildings in our industrial section, that maybe didn't work. So it's now it's kind of like saying, kind of like bringing a little more daylight into, by having it be in major areas where there is a lot of foot traffic or people coming back and forth, that might help make sure that the activities are what we're anticipating or expecting under, a legal massage establishment?
Sure, and that's exactly right. Councilmember O'Neill, we want to find a balancing act with this use. It's clearly something we want to provide for the community, and they should be in environments that are dynamic, that have more transparency, visibility, that are walkable. So trying to not have them just pushed off into the corner of industrial lands, but instead bringing them into our more active commercial districts.
Okay, I think that's a good idea. Thank you.
Councilmember Watanabe?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I have a question. I mean, I'm glad that regarding the human trafficking, that the notices will be mandatory, but a lot of times with human trafficking, the issue of wage theft comes up. Has wage theft come up with in any of the discussions or proposals to add?
So when we do inspections or potentially operations at some of these establishments that we've gotten complaints about, we do bring with us other law enforcement partners, state and local, that help look into things like that, not just wage theft, but also possibly theft of other kinds. And so there are other partners that come in with us. I don't think we discussed it specifically for the ordinance, but I do know that when we go out and do the site visits, we do bring other folks with us that help us look at other areas that may not be our forte or our clear understanding of the law, but we want all of that looked at.
Okay.
And I think a violation of any of those types of laws would be grounds for revocation of the police permit for having the establishment.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I have a question, and I want to thank you for revising this. I remember when we did this prior to Super Bowl, and one of the big issues was for human trafficking, because apparently when you have a Super Bowl, a lot of human trafficking comes with it. So I think that really helped us a lot. And then, you know, now bringing them back into the community is important. As Councilmember O'Neill said, we pushed them out, and now we want them to come back, because to be clear, massage is great for health and wellness. I mean, it's really important for people and how they live. To be able to get this kind of treatment, it's an alternative treatment that a lot of people, including a lot of us up here, rely on. So, you know, being able to go to your local neighborhood commercial retail places, it's great, because you walk outside, you don't want to be in a dark industrial parking lot hidden somewhere. You want it all out in the open, and then if there are issues, then the community can see it and report it. One of the questions I had was regarding an issue the last time we actually enacted this massage ordinance. Was we did a really, really terrible job of informing all the people that had these licenses. They didn't know that the laws and the rules and the ordinances had changed. And I remember sitting in the office and just watching a line of people walking in. They didn't understand it. Many didn't speak English, didn't hear what was going on. It was a disaster the way we approved it, and there was absolutely no outreach. So what are we going to do this time, assuming this passes? What are we going to do in terms of outreach? Because there's going to be a lot of the small businesses that are going to be afraid that they're going to have to move. And how are we going to educate the community so we don't repeat the mistakes we made last time? Rena?
Yeah.
You weren't here, so wasn't you. No.
So I don't need to take credit for any of that. But we've done a lot of outreach to the businesses that are existing. PD has hand-delivered notices, has provided outreach meetings in English and in Mandarin, which was a very common language of the practitioners. We will continue to communicate through formal communications so that all of the existing businesses are aware of the rule change. Many individuals have been coming to our permit center counter because they're aware of the amortization date and they're paying attention to that. So hopefully we won't have hiccups, but we'll do our best to communicate, you know, written, and then provide additional service as well as at our permit counter where people come in for information.
You may have said it, I may have missed it. How many permits do we have right now? Oh, it was on one of the charts.
We have 15 businesses that are have valid permits that, we would have to look at situationally, but there are 15 permits that are in effect today.
So it's enough that you can reach out to them individually to let them know
Correct. Yes.
the situation?
Yes,
So they
and we
don't,
will.
so they're not fearful after council takes action. Okay, thank you. I don't see any other council comments. This is a public hearing. So are there members of the public that would like to speak on this issue? I don't see any cards. We have no cards. Please come forward if you'd like to give input on this. All right, seeing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Motion second to close the public hearing. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Is there a motion to?
Mayor, I'd like to
For
make a
this ordinance?
motion to approve staff recommendation to introduce the proposed amendment to chapters, 5.40 and the Planning Commission's recommended amended to chapters 18.34, 18.36, 18.42, 18.56, 18.70, and 18.101 of the Santa Clara Code, City Code related to massage establishments.
104, but yes, okay.
Yeah, I did that right, I think. Yes.
And that's a motion.
That's
Is
a
there a
motion.
second? Motion and a second. Do we have any discussion, Vice Mayor Mahan?
I know that 2 gyms to which I belong, neither of which are in Santa Clara, and one of which isn't even in this state, offer massage. And I just was looking briefly on the internet, and a lot of gyms offer, the chair massages like you see in airports and so forth. So I don't know if the council wants to consider when it comes back to the second reading to add that or refer that to staff to see if it's something that we ought to add.
Should we add that now instead of a second, on the
Sure.
second reading?
Yeah.
Can we add that now? Maker of the motion?
Yes, Xander's going yes.
I'm not sure how we would, do we have a good definition of gym use?
Could you
Health
bring back it
clubs,
proposed for
gyms.
next?
Why don't we do that?
reading?
Why don't you approve it the way it is, and we'll bring back on this, on the second reading, whether there's an easy way to amend that.
Okay, but that's our intent.
And we could
to
always
add
pass
that
it
in.
and then bring back a cleanup amendment.
But it's noted that Xander can look at that, right?
Right.
Okay.
All right, motion second. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. And thank you for that report, all of you. We appreciate it. Thank you. All right, next we have also a public hearing, fiscal year 2018-19 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report for the use of federal housing and urban development funds. And it is a public hearing, so I'm going to declare the hearing open. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jonathan Veach, Housing Manager. Tonight, I'll be presenting an overview of our 2018-2019 Annual Performance Report, which I'll refer to as the CAPER. And this evaluates the use of our federal entitlement funds. So as you may know, this city receives entitlement funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. The purpose of the funding is to benefit low-income households by providing affordable housing and community services. Each year, the city must report to HUD on its performance measures through this report, the CAPER. Tonight's recommendation will be to approve the 2018-2019 CAPER, to direct staff to incorporate any public comments received, and to submit the CAPER to HUD on or before our September 30th deadline. So here is a diagram of kind of the annual HUD cycle. The submission of the CAPER on September 30th is typically our last benchmark in the calendar year for HUD. At the beginning of the calendar year, we conduct community outreach, determine our funding allocations for the year, and make funding awards to our public service providers. Our annual action plan is due in May of each year, and our agreements are typically executed at the end of June, and that's so they can take effect at the beginning of the fiscal year, July 1st. So every 3 to 4 years, it's also typical for HUD to visit cities and to perform a program audit. So coincidentally, in 2019, it was a program audit year for us. So in early July, some HUD representatives came and reviewed all of our program files. And I'm happy to report that we successfully passed our HUD audit, which is a great accomplishment in itself. And also, I think, reflects the hard work staff has put into cleaning up all of our HUD programs. Also, I think it's important to highlight where we are in the federal grant cycle because this is the last year of our 5-year consolidated plan. So the 5-year con plan, as we call it, is designed to help cities assess their affordable housing and community development needs, and also to make data-driven investment choices. The goals and priorities that are identified in the 5-year con plan inform how we program our annual action plans year to year. And the city's currently working with a county collaborative with the county and other cities to complete its 5-year comp plan. So we'll plan on conducting community outreach in the 4th quarter of this year. We'll put out surveys in the 4th quarter as well, and ultimately we'll bring back the final comp plan with the annual action plan to council next May. So during our last comp plan, the community identified the following program priorities, and this really is what informs our action plan year to year: affordable housing, homelessness, public services, which include senior services, services for domestic violence survivors, and emergency food services, fair housing, which includes tenant-landlord mediation, and public facilities improvements, which include ADA improvements and improvements to some of our nonprofit service providers. This chart illustrates in 2018-19, this is how we spent our money and how those categories correspond to our comp plan priorities. We spent approximately $3 million in 2018-19, with the majority going towards affordable housing. Almost all of the Fed money that we spend on affordable housing is concentrated in 2 programs: our tenant-based rental assistance program, which we refer to as TBRA, and our neighborhood conservation improvement program, which we refer to as NCIP. In the last program year, we invested approximately $900,000 of our home money into the TBRA, tenant-based rental assistance program. And we assisted 51 households, which includes 76 adults and 106 children who are either homeless or formerly homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. We also invested over $500,000 in our neighborhood rehab program, and we assisted 10 senior households to update and improve their homes. We also helped a number of residents through our public service contracts and private facilities funding, especially the elderly and disabled through accessibility improvements, and seniors and the homeless through our public service contracts. For those who aren't familiar with NCIP and TBRA programs, I just wanted to highlight what the programs are. Since 1976, the NCIP program has helped rehab over 1,500 single-family homes. The rehab scopes tend to focus on addressing health and safety issues, bringing homes back up to building code requirements, and very often addressing accessibility improvements for seniors. The program also helps improve the safety and beauty of our neighborhoods by investing in some of the older affordable housing stock. And this is accomplished through low-interest capital loans with deferred principal and interest payments up to 20 years for qualified participants. Here's just one example of a before and after photo recently completed in our NCIP program. In the before photos, you can see the kitchen has deteriorated flooring, cabinetry, and appliances. The owner is senior and has dementia, and so the gas stoves were swapped out for electric stoves, and the kitchen layout was opened up to modify and provide for more access points to the kitchen. And then finally, our TBRA program, tenant-based rental assistance. The program provides security deposits and subsidies for up to 12 months to assist homeless families and families at risk of becoming homeless. The rental assistance covers the difference between 30% of the participant's monthly income and the monthly rent. Similar to a Section 8 voucher, the difference is it's temporary. It's not permanent as a voucher could be. The program also supplements the rental assistance with case management through our third-party program provider, Abode Services. And most participants are typically referred to Abode through the county coordinated assessment queue and also the Santa Clara Unified School District. So in conclusion, staff's recommendation tonight is to approve the 2018-2019 CAPER report and to submit the report to HUD on or before the September 30th deadline. That concludes the presentation. I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Questions from the council? Seeing none?
Whoa.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now I see Councilmember O'Neill.
Thank you, Jonathan, for all the information. So I did see a reference in there to like the kind of the energy efficiency, and I see we have several of our senior staff from Silicon Valley Power here to talk in a little bit about our strategic plan. I mean, one of the thoughts I've had is, would there be a way to do even more kind of leveraging between, I know the SVP has a lot of community benefits uh, funds that are, that they have that could be available, that perhaps we could do more types of rehab, in homes and apartments to help make them, more livable or more energy efficient. That would maybe, kind of bring together the dual purposes. As I said, I did see, I know there's some reference there, but, what might we do in that? And those areas, because, like, I think you and I've had a little bit of discussion about, even with we have so many of our low-income folks that are living in rental properties, and not always do we have our landlords that are perhaps maintaining those properties the way that we would like. And, it's kind of gets complicated to find ways to kind of upgrade those buildings and make sure that the tenants are really the ones that are benefiting from them, and not then all of a sudden the landlord raises the rent. Or, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, so in the neighborhood conservation program, which is single-family rehab, when our housing inspector goes out and does an assessment and a scope of work, we really try to incentivize the homeowner to choose energy-efficient fixtures and wherever possible to make the home more energy efficient. The reference, I think, that you're pointing to is on the multifamily side. So we have a portfolio of multifamily affordable housing properties that historically have been funded with home and CDBG funds. And those projects tend to cash flow not very well because the rents are low and there's deferred maintenance over time. And so one of the ideas we had was trying to invest in those projects, trying to help them fund deferred maintenance because they can't do it from operating cash flow, and improve the cash flow and have the city kind of benefit from that, have the tenants benefit and the city as well through our portfolio. And so we have a pilot program where we're working with the affordable, so it's restricted to affordable housing owners and developers that are in our portfolio. And we are working with SVP actually as well to try to bring the resources together. So there is a program called the Bay Rent program, and it's a regional energy efficient rehab program. And the incentives are based off of both gas and electricity. And it goes through PG&E. And so most developers can access that. But in Santa Clara, it's a bit tricky with SVP. So we're working with them to really incentivize developers to do energy efficient rehabs. And the city has a program that will release probably in the next few weeks, just kind of an overview of what the requirements are for multifamily developers to qualify and what the incentives would be.
Thank you, Councilmember Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. You knew you were going to get a question from me. I was reading the report, and by the way, this is a phenomenal report, and I know how hard you and Eric and your team work down there, Jonathan. But in the report under goals and outcomes, there was this one section that talked about the affordable housing goal, and in the 5-year consolidated plan, had an expected goal of 298 affordable housing units constructed or rehabilitated, and as of PY 18, there have been 161 units rehabilitated. The city continues to struggle to spend down the home community housing development organization set aside funds, and an RFP had been sent out, but you didn't receive any applicants. And I was surprised at that because we know there are tremendous needs in our community, many communities around us. What can we do differently to reach people to make sure that that money is being utilized? That was just what I wondered about.
Yeah, so the Community Housing Development Organization set aside, we call it CHODO, CHDO. Every year when Home gives us our entitlement funding, there's a small set aside, about $30,000 to $40,000 that's dedicated for these community housing development organizations. And many cities have had challenges trying to find community development organizations to fund this work. Part of the reason is $40,000 isn't enough to incentivize somebody to change their board makeup and kind of meet all of the requirements, and there's many to qualify as a CHODO. And also when they're doing multifamily development projects, there seems to be a threshold for a developer to take home funds because there could be Davis-Bacon requirements and all sorts of other requirements. And so developers usually need multi-million-dollar investments. And so the $40,000 doesn't seem to be enough. So we've been accumulating some over time. HUD recently waived the deadline to spend our CHODO allocation. So we were kind of scrambling with the RFP to have it spent by the fall. They waived it because many cities were struggling to find an allocation. I will say we have a meeting with a developer next week who is interested in becoming a community housing development organization. And so we're hopeful if we take not only the set aside, but other resources we have and combine them, that might be enough to incentivize somebody to spend our set aside.
Great, okay, that's good to hear. Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember Davis?
You done with questions? Make a motion?
It's a public hearing, so thank you. I don't see any further questions. This is a public hearing. I don't see any further council questions. This is a public hearing. Would any member of the public like to speak on this issue? If so, please come forward. Okay, not seeing any. Councilmember Davis, motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close public hearing?
Motion second to close the public hearing. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Councilmember Davis?
I'd like to make a motion, staff recommendation to approve the 2018-19 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, CAPER, and direct staff to incorporate all public comments into a final version to be submitted to HUD on or before September 30th, 2019.
Second. Motion second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for that report. We appreciate it. All right, next, we're moving to consideration of Silicon Valley Power Quarterly Strategic Plan Update. Ready for that hat?
I am ready for that hat. Thank you very much, Mayor, members of the council. Manuel Pineda, Chief Electric Utility Officer. I'm going to go through our quarterly strategic plan update with you tonight. I do want to remind you that we were not able to do this last quarter, so my presentation's a little longer, but I am going to go through the slides somewhat fast for you. And if you have any questions, you can always come back to them. Oops.
Thank you.
There we go. Sorry. From an agenda perspective, I'm going to briefly touch on our growth and revenues. We had a number of presentations for you on our wildfire and PG&E updates, so I'm going to just briefly go through that, and then we'll jump into the strategic plan itself, briefly go over the summary, let you know what initiatives we're currently working on, as well as some highlighting some specific ones. And we had a question from council last time about the use of restricted funds, so I do want to give you a little bit of detail on that, so make sure I'm answering the council questions. And then talk a couple of slides on our rebates and customer programs. I do want to note that I do have the SVP group with me today, Ann, Alan, and Kevin. So, of course, they'll be able to help with any questions as needed. So from a load growth perspective, similar to what we saw last time we presented to you, SVP has had incredible growth for many, many years, especially if you look at that around 2004 till today. Our sales growth was a little bit less than last year, about 1.2% less. But I do want to announce that we reached a new system peak. So on June 11th, we had a new system peak of 587 megawatts. And in context, the utility is doing very well. From a revenue and expense perspective, there's a lot of information there. Obviously, we just mentioned that we had a little bit less sales than forecasted, but the information and it's still really good. Our expenses are also lower than expected, and we're actually going to be able to put money into our reserves this year. And we'll come back to council letting you know kind of what our recommendations are going to be related to that. So we're very excited about the future. We recently started our Parker substation. It's now in operation. I was actually able to visit it right before it went into operation. It's just a very cool facility. You also recently approved another substation agreement, and we have 4 additional substation agreements that we're going to bring for council consideration. So as you can tell, we're still the place to be, and SVP is very happy to provide the power for all those businesses. But to be able to do all this work, we do have a lot of capital projects, and this is something me and the team are working on to make sure we can put a game plan in place that help us allow to deliver all the projects. Not going to go through all of those. Just want to let you know that we've broken down into different colors. One is for system growth. We have the blue. The orange is more of replacement projects, which are necessary to make sure we maintain the great reliability that we already have. Then we have data center growth in green. And we have 7 additional substations under discussion. So not saying that all those will happen, but those are currently under discussion. So we just have a bar that continues forever on that one. Wildfire planning, I think Kevin did a great job a couple of months ago, went through all of this. A couple of highlights. It was pretty interesting. I was in Northern California the last 2 days, and there was actually a PSPS in the area. It was all over the newspaper. Seemed to be handled very well. Watched it in the news, and it seemed that it went well. Did not affect us. It was really related to Northern California. Just to let you know that internally we're having a significant number of meetings to make sure we're ready for this, both from a kind of what we need to do in a communication perspective, and we're also working with some of our bigger clients that if we are, if a PSPS does take into effect that affect our load, we want to work proactively to reduce that load instead of dictating where the reductions are going to happen. So that's all actively working today. From a PG&E bankruptcy perspective, we keep working with the attorney's office to determine kind of where our risks are, and we're getting closer to kind of finalizing our comments on that, and we'll probably send you an update in the next month or so. So now getting to the strategic plan, approved in December of 2018, at a high level perspective, set our mission, vision, and values, but of course, we want to make sure that we have outcomes and success. And it's really a 10-year plan with 10-year initiatives, but we're going to be flexible over the next 10 years. So this is our roadmap. We're supposed to be just in years 0 to 2, which is the near term, but as you can tell, we're already jumping to years 2 and 3. In green, you have the items that are already completed, and in blue, you have items that are currently in progress. So I am going to highlight a few things along the way. Not going to go through all of those for you. Always want to bring out the context that this is a significant level of work, but it's very important work, so we're committed to it. The group's committed to it, and we're aggressively looking at all the steps we need to take. Ultimately, there's a possibility that a number of these elements will require more funding and staffing. And what's important to note, and we said this before, is that it's not just related to SVP staff, but a lot of the work we do affects other city departments, and we'll have to see how that affects and what that means to them. With that, let's go to some highlighted initiatives. So just highlighting what we completed: organizational design evaluation, utility benchmark, our IRP plan, and the EV blueprint, and we'll touch on those one by one. And then from some couple of things that are in progress, our smart city sustainability partnerships with other city departments, and that's going to go on for a while. And we are really formalizing our employee communication. And to the right, I just wanted to show you a picture of our new quarterly newsletter that we have. So from a organizational design evaluation, you now have a new chief electric utility officer. I was interim last time I did this presentation for you. We also have a new assistant director of operations. You met him here last time with Chris Carwick, who was interim at the time, and now he's permanent. He's at he's still in Northern California. I was there with him, and we're actively recruiting positions. We're trying to hire recruiters to help us with that. RP3, we spent some time on that last time, so I'll go through that. Just remind you that that was a very successful process. The IRP was adopted by council in 2018. It's being updated with the data, and we either meet or exceed the required, which is the important note. And the council has implemented some projects recently. We have the Ultimate Pass Wind Project and the Elsa's Hydroelectric Power Purchase Agreement. And we expect that you'll see new projects that will come along the way, and those will just continue to come as we're successful at getting more renewable energy. The electrical vehicle blueprint is a very significant project. I think that was approved in consent. But it really lays out a lot of the groundwork associated with what we want to do over the next few years as it relates to electric vehicles. We expect that we're going to have to add from a low of 500 to a high of 1,800 new public ports. Some Specific activities from the electric vehicle blueprint, we know we have to do some work with our multifamily dwelling units as well as our disadvantaged communities to make sure we create more availability. A great note for us that a lot of the utilities have issues with is that because we have such a high load, adding electric vehicles is really just a plus. It's not much of a financial gain in the context of things, but it also doesn't have much of an effect on our load. So we can be pretty aggressive with it. And we are taking some immediate actions. I think you saw the notice that went out on the regional partnership for charger implementation. So we partner with all our adjacent communities. We recently adopted, just a few weeks ago, a city fleet electrification policy. So we're going to look at electrifying all our vehicles that, some we can't, but all the ones that we can, we're going to try to do that. And to make sure that's successful, you can't have a city fleet that's electric without having the right chargers. We have identified the 10-year growth for charger locations. And either this week or next week, we're going to release an RFP for vendors to select vendors to help us do the chargers installations for what we see for the next 5 years or so, with the possibility of extending it for a 10-year process. And, we have to be aware that charger technology might change, so we don't want to be too aggressive. We thought a 5-year limit was about right to make sure that we have the infrastructure for the electric fleet. So no council asked about this last time, so I want to make sure I spend time on it. So we do have some restricted funds that we use, and there's 3 of them. We have the greenhouse gas cap and trade allowances, and that can be used for the type of elements that you see in front of you. 2 I want to highlight for you because they're pretty new, and you'll be seeing this at the council in the near term. Is the City Climate Action Plan support. CDD will be the lead on that project, and we're looking at providing funding as well as staff support for that, but funding for it. And in the next few months, you will see a contract associated to moving forward with that work. And also, I believe in October, you'll be seeing something related to REACH code, so you can kind of have some discussion and perspective on that. Low carbon fuel credits, of course, can go to electric vehicles and chargers. I just spoke to you about a number of those things we're doing. City Green Fleet support, so we're excited we can use some of that funding, as well as the regional collaboration that we're talking about. And one key component for us is we do have the next phases of the EV blueprint. We're going to be going after grants, but we can also use our low carbon fuel credits to fund that. And then the last is the public benefit charge. We have 4 allowed areas for use: energy efficiency, renewable energy, and storing renewable energy, low-income focus programs, and R&D. And then we also have our rebate programs. We have, pretty successful, $2 million in 17-18, almost $3 million in 18-19. Our top energy efficiency programs are lighting rebates, exterior lighting direct install program. And then also we have data center rebates and customer direct rebates. We do have new programs that'll be coming your way, and either through policy direction or just as informational items to let you know. The electric vehicle charger rebates. We have nonprofit energy efficiency grants that's under development. We're very excited about that. And then refrigerator recycling program that'll be coming soon. So with that, we recommend to note and file our strategic plan update.
Wow, a lot going on. Thank you. That was a very comprehensive report. I have a couple of lights here. Councilmember Davis and Watanabe.
You should talk to the assistant city manager to give you a raise. Teasing you. Okay.
Hold on. Give me a second. I gotta write that down.
So Team Silicon Valley Power sitting way back there. You should all be sitting up here. This is terrific. I mean, this is great. Putting money away in the reserves, that's a big thing. We like that. But the new programs and identifying, I like turning the fleet. I know we can't do the entire fleet, but just electric charging the whole fleet in Santa Clara. We have a lot of vehicles, and I commend you on that one. Hopefully we'll have hybrids or something. If it's a bigger utility, we can't get away with electric, but I just think this is a tremendous report and would love to note and file this as a motion. But I know there's other people who want to say anything to you, but great job.
Thank you. Councilmember Watanabe and then Hardy after that.
Well, I'm happy to second the note and file, but also just add two things. I'm really glad that you brought up about the electric vehicle blueprint because I've actually had discussions with some residents recently they're asking for more electrical vehicle outlets in North Santa Clara. And primarily like the Rivermark Plaza area. So this is good news, that there's a plan, for 5-year and 10-year growth and then, working with vendors, in terms of, where those locations will be. So if you need any input on that, I'm sure I could get some ideas for you. The other thing regarding the climate action, the city climate action plan support, I'm hearing from a lot of residents as well about that issue, and so this is just really good news. It's like, we're all on the same page, the city's on the same page as the residents, and so, there's a plan going forward, and so this is really good information. So thank you very much for all of your efforts, because it's not just one person, it's a team, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Hardy, and then Chahal.
I'd just like to let the council know that while I was teaching my AP Computer Science class this week, we were talking about the internet, and the students did a little research on data centers and were shocked, and I was able to explain to them why. Santa Clara came up as the top one for data centers on the West Coast.
That's a little known secret that we keep. Thanks.
Not anymore.
Councilmember Chahal, and then O'Neill.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the report, and thanks for the great job SVP is doing to the whole team as such. I have a couple of comments, like I know you run scholarship programs. That's very important to some of our students who are passing from our schools. Is there any plan to expand that so that we can help more students down the line?
We currently don't have any plans to expand it. I know we were here a few months ago presenting the scholarships to those students. If at some point there's council policy direction to look at expanding it, we could look at that, but currently we don't have any plans on it.
And on the rebate side, like I know we'll be discussing bicycle plan soon. Can we add electric bicycle rebates plan on the rebates? Can we look into that?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, but we can certainly take it back and we'll get back to you.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill?
Thank you. So very interesting times we live in the world of energy these days. And I think most of us heard portions of the speech that the 16-year-old Greta made yesterday at the United Nations conclave on climate change. And I think in the recent years, or for the first version of the Climate Action Plan, I would say 90% of the heavy lifting in Santa Clara was being done by Silicon Valley Power. And I think one of the things we're going to have to look at under that plan is and that's what's good to see, like the electrification of the fleet and other things. We're going to have to look at it as a total community. We're not going to be able just to rely on SVP getting the carbon out of, our generation. So that's a challenge we have to face. And then just on that, looking at, we've bought some wind. I tell everybody about, el viento loco, when we've gone from coal to wind in northern New Mexico and all of that. And I think, the challenges are still greatly there in terms of when we all expect any time that we go to plug in something to charge or to flip a switch or whatever, that lights are going to come on. And as our chief utility officer was talking about, describing there's parts of Northern California right now that lights aren't coming on when they're flipping the switch. And so some of that, as we look at what, has storage been overhyped? What are we going to be, as we have to find a way, if we're going to have a place for the children of the next generation to live, you know, what are those technologies that we can find, and, you know, what from, you know, from SVP's perspective, when, I mean, research is going on at all the major universities, but, you know, keeping on top of that. And, you know, I know we're trying, but I think that, you know, the demands are just going to just keep increasing. And I know that it's been a challenge to figure out how to keep up with these, you know, the bubble that we live in, that is California, may be spreading, you know, is in terms of the requirements that our utilities are working under, and some of the new programs that are coming forward about cars. And we've been hearing some of that about the emission standards, but I know there's going to be some really interesting things coming forward about, we're going to be kind of compelled by the state to come along and have rebate, a much more robust rebate program for electric vehicles and for the charging infrastructure. You know, so it's just, I guess my point is that we still have to keep thinking about or figuring out, because it's, you know, it's probably not too far in the future where they're going to say, okay, no natural gas, you know, where we thought 10 years ago that that was kind of more of a safe harbor, but it's, you know, not, you know, it's proving that that's not going to do, you know, and to the creativity that we've used in having the geothermal plants that we have, and, you know, obviously the wind and the solar, but finding other ways that we can come up with energy, and also to get people to conserve more. And I see like new refrigerator rebates. We're just all going to have to look at, and this kind of dovetails a little bit into the next item, which is going to be the bike plan. You know, like, you know, like we're all going to have to change the way we live. So I mean, that would be my thoughts, is that in the strategic plan, that we have to keep in mind that environment, and that everybody is going to be challenged to figure out, how do we find a way to operate in a very dramatically changing environment. So I know we have a lot of very thoughtful people, and you know, so I would just want to emphasize that. And I would like to make a comment to kind of piggyback on what Councilmember Shahal said about the scholarship program. One thought that I've had, and I've mentioned this before, is while we do want to see, we certainly want to see young people coming into the energy field and power engineering, and I think most of the people I talk to, you know, a lot of people will tell me that they didn't ever intend to go into working for an electric utility, whether it's here in Santa Clara or wherever in the United States, but they find it a fascinating place to work. But one of the areas that's of most need is people in the technical, you know, or the trade positions, whether it's line people or the electricians, the crafts people, the trades. And that this is a problem across the United States. So one of my thoughts had been, and I know there's some various programs, and I've gone to a number of like seminars on looking like, how do you attract people to these positions, is, you know, maybe rather than expanding that scholarship program or even having that scholarship program, should we be doing, you know, doing more work? I know we have some partnerships on like the a lineman or line person academy, but looking at some of those other areas, how could we partner more with the community colleges, and particularly Mission College or others, and maybe help provide funding for people to get those more technical skills for the hands-on work that has to be done to keep the lights on. So that's one of my thoughts. But otherwise, great report, and it's, you know, we're heading into exciting but daunting times.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Mahan?
Thank you. I want to really thank the Silicon Valley Power team for such an excellent report. Focusing on just a few items in the report, I'm very glad to see that we are focusing on low carbon fuel credits, starting with ourselves, you know, starting with making our fleet as much as possible a green fleet, going to electric cars in whatever stages, phases we need to do that. I'm also struck kind of by the irony of the fact that we pay our customers to use less energy, which kind of reduces our income, which seems sort of counterintuitive to operating this business, but that's one of the joys of being a public power agency, is we can focus on doing what's right, rather than, as investor-owned utilities, doing what's profitable. And giving back $3 million in rebates to get our customers to go a little greener is a tremendous step in, you know, in climate action planning, in trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, in trying to do, as I say, do what's right for our environment. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you. I don't see any others. So is there any member of the public that would like to speak on the quarterly report? Please come forward. I don't see any speakers. All right, staff, Director Pineda, do you have any closing comments?
No additional comments, thank you.
Thank you. Your report was well worth the wait. That's all I have to say. And thank you to the SVP staff that's here already. And I want to say a special thank you to our council liaison to the SVP, which is Councilmember O'Neill. She, on top of being the chair of the VTA, she has had her hands full with SVP and has represented us very well. We're very proud of what she's done and keeping the council informed and representing us on behalf of the City Council with SVP. And so thank you, Councilmember O'Neill, for that as well. And I think we have a motion and a second to note and file this strategic plan update. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, our next item on the agenda we have is action on a resolution adopting the Santa Clara Bicycle Plan Update 2018. And our Director of Public Works, welcome back.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Craig Mobeck, Director of Public Works. So we're excited to bring the bike plan before you for consideration tonight. We've spent over the past 2 years working on this. We started out going through the process of obtaining a grant. And then we spent a lot of time out in the community doing outreach, getting a lot of valuable input. So I just wanted to thank the Mayor, Council, the City Manager's Office for providing guidance regarding this document. I also wanted to note thanks to the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, the Silicon Valley Bike Coalition, as well as the public for providing all the valuable input. It's bigger than any one person. It's bigger than our staff. We really rely on getting out in the community, getting the input to put into this report. I also wanted to thank staff for their hard work. Wanted to thank Alta Engineering who helped put this plan together, and I wanted to thank Assistant Director of Public Works Mike Liu for all his hard work with this document. And lastly, just before I turn it over to Mike to go through the details, I just wanted to remind Council that this is a bike plan. It doesn't mean that we are approving all these projects today. There's certainly a process that goes along with the bike plan. We need to come back through the budget process, propose projects to get into the budget. And also we know that some of the projects require further parking studies. They might require studies if one of the projects is talking about lane reductions. And we know that is a much bigger discussion. And so any of those projects, we would go through the appropriate process, do the community outreach, and ultimately come back to council on those types of decisions. So I just wanted to make sure everybody's clear on that. So with that, I will turn it over to Mike to go through the details of the bike plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. So once again, Mike Liu, Assistant Director of Public Works. Pleasure to be here, Mayor and Council. Tonight I'll be presenting on the city's new bicycle plan. As Craig mentioned, after about 2 years, this new bicycle plan is being presented to you tonight for approval. With me today is Jeff Knowles. He's to my right here. I'd like to introduce him. He's with Alta Planning and Design and who's been our consultant on this project. So thank him for attending tonight. So I do have roughly a little over 20 slides to go through, kind of walk you through the agenda here. So first we have the background. We're going to go through the background on the effort. We'll talk about outreach and coordination that we've done since we started the plan. We'll quickly go through the plan overview and some highlights, and then we can discuss the recommendations in the plan as well as the recommendation to approve it. So with this slide, really what we're trying to indicate here is that we started roughly in 2017 with the MTC grant, which the council was a part of, and then in December, and then from there we've been running ever since. So 2018 was a heavy year for the bike plan. Quite a few community events, which I'll go through in another slide. But really what you see here is a work plan in motion. So you have goals, policies, and existing conditions from April to May of 2018, needs assessment, recommendations, draft plan, and final plan. So if anybody ever wants to know how you create one of these, this is a good guide, and this is what we followed. So I think what's always important to recognize when you're creating these master plans is what is the overall purpose. So, we do have a vision statement, which I'll go through shortly, but really this is to establish a long-term vision for improving cycling in our community through policy, program, and project recommendations. So it's not just construction. We're talking about policy decisions, programs, and as Craig mentioned, this is one of the key pieces to the bike plan, is that this is a blueprint, a vision. Some projects that will require coming back for council approval regarding budgets, studies, and additional approvals as needed. So as we kind of go through the rest of the presentation, you'll see where those may come into play. Having a bike plan maintains our eligibility for grant funding, and more importantly, it does help us invest in transportation alternatives. That's become very popular and necessary as congestion increases in the Bay Area. And then it also creates a healthy transportation options for our residents and for those that actually work in our community. So outreach and coordination was a heavy and very large, significant portion of the plan development. We had 3 workshops, 4 pop-up events, 5 BPAC meetings. Social media was important, interagency coordination. We heavily used our website and city blogs, city manager blogs, Channel 15. And what was actually pretty cool was an online interactive survey. So people were able to go online, see the city map, kind of point out areas that they were concerned. People could see other people's comments, and that was a very key piece of data. So what was also very popular was the pop-up events, being able to go to where people are going to be anyways, like such as farmers markets. Those were fairly well attended, and you can see from the pictures that we had a very active participation throughout. So this is where I start on the plan overview. So once again, a long-range planning document focused on encouraging bicycling as a safe and healthy transportation alternative. So we have 4 chapters within the document. We talk about today's environment. We'll talk about vision, goals, objectives, and policies, recommendations, and implementation. So right now, today in Santa Clara, this is all in your packet, but just for the audience and for the sake of mentioning it, we have roughly 70 miles of bicycle facilities in our city. Currently, we are roughly around 1.8% of commute trips by bicycle. So this is when you compare it to other jurisdictions like Sunnyvale, San Jose, we're within those ranges. Other cities such as Mountain View, Palo Alto have pretty high numbers, and those are either based on the specifics of those cities that we, like Palo Alto or Mountain View, they've invested significantly in that type of system. We do have some bicycle programs that we run. Safe Routes to School is always popular. Bike to Work Day, there's quite a few others. This portion of the document does talk about bicycle collisions, so we have that information. And then we also focus on bicycle level of traffic stress. So these are there's roughly 4 categories, and then really what you do with that is you characterize certain roadways. So if you want to ride a bike on this type of facility, then you have to be a level 4 because that's for the experienced and the fearless, versus those that want to kind of do a leisurely stroll. So here's some more information for the council. Currently today, roughly 70 miles of bicycle facilities, and you can see the breakout. We have shared use paths, which are type 1. This is your San Tomas Aquino Creek. Your type 2 standard, which makes up the bulk of this, is really your standard bike lane next to a vehicular lane, oftentimes next to parking. Buffered, we have some buffered bike lanes within our city, not much. Bicycle routes are basically share the road type situations. And then the remaining 2 bicycle boulevards and separated bikeways we do not have at this time. And I'll get into that in a minute here. But I think what's important is to walk through the vision, and this is something I would actually read verbatim. The city of Santa Clara is a healthy, thriving, and safe city where people of all ages and abilities may easily and comfortably ride a bicycle as part of their daily lives. So it's intended to be all-encompassing, dealing with all sorts of residents and workers, and really one of the focuses here is easily and comfortably ride. That became apparent during the outreach with residents and stakeholders. So with any vision statement, you need to have goals, define goals. So safety, connectivity, and bicycle friendliness are really key goals to focus on. I won't go through more detail than that. And then what that leads is to objectives and policies, and I'll walk you through the objectives. So We do have 6 bicycle plan objectives. Vision Zero by 2024, funding by 2026 for all high priority project recommendations. We'd like to plan, design, and construct a complete network, enhance procedures to install and maintain new facilities, increase bicycle mode share to 5% by 2026, and then ongoing planning and evaluation. So, at this point, I'm going to jump right into the actual plan itself in terms of what we're looking to propose. And these are 4 of the highlights here. So we would like to double the current bicycle network to 142 miles, very ambitious. We'd like to adopt new and update bicycle facility standards. So as mentioned earlier, there are some facilities that we'd like to upgrade and new types of bicycle facilities to install. We do have targeted improvements that were key, that we believe are key to improving bicycling. These are called spot improvements. And then we're also looking to promote and have the city participate in additional bicycle-related programs. So with these next 4 slides, I'm going to walk you through the different types of facilities. I'll breeze through this. So your class 1, as I mentioned earlier, is a shared use path, has completely separate facilities. It's often shared with pedestrians. And you have your 2 examples here. Bicycle, this next one is class 2. So with class 2, you have your standard bike lane, and you also have your buffered bike lane. And we do have some buffers within our city, and Scott Lanes is the notable one for your typical bike lane. And then class 3, so this is a bicycle route, bicycle boulevard. So bicycle route, as I mentioned, is share the road. Bicycle boulevard's a little different. It's still share the road, but in situations where that road needs a little bit of traffic calming, the cities will tend to do that in order to make that ride more comfortable. And then last but not least is your class 4 separated bikeway. This is a more modern and more current standard that a lot of cities are trying to install when possible. And really what it does is it creates vertical separation between the actual bicycle facility and the vehicle. Okay, as you can see in this picture, you may have a cycle track where people are going in 2 directions. We currently don't have those in Santa Clara. So this is when you look at bicycle facility by type, this is our summary of all the facilities that we're looking to create with this proposed bicycle plan. Once again, 71 miles going to 142 miles, and really, trying to improve a lot of the existing facilities. I won't go through all the specifics here, but roughly this is, can cost upwards of $40 million. So when you take that $40 million worth of projects and the roughly 70 miles of additional bike facilities, the plan, what it does is it helps us implement it through priority ranking criteria. So we focus on safety, connectivity, gap closure, comfort, community identified areas, and then feasibility. And then really this kind of lays out a work plan for staff. So we do have some priority bikeway corridors, and this is just another summary of what we're looking to do. So roughly these are $28 million worth of work. In a minute, we can specify some of those, but really it's an investment in shared use paths, bicycle lanes, buffered lanes, you name it, and then we do have an investment in separated bikeways. So what we have here is the top 10 priority projects. These are, as I mentioned earlier in the previous slide, was a larger number. These are the top 10 that were ranked by the community in terms of the process, and then staff weighed in as well. And you can see kind of where we're headed with these. El Camino Real was the #1 priority that the plan identifies. Poon Ridge Avenue is another one, Scott Boulevard, and then as we go down, there are some other areas as well. Some of this is based on accident data as well, collisions. So when you factored all that in, these were the top priority projects. As Craig mentioned, some of these projects may be controversial. We will be coming back to council to discuss those in further detail. And this is roughly almost $7 million worth of work here. So next steps, ideally we get the approval of the bike plan tonight with a council comment. We are going to pursue grant opportunities. That's always been a key funding source for us. We do intend to propose some projects for the upcoming capital budget. We believe that's an important investment for the city to make. And then when the budget's approved, hopefully those make the cut. And then, but as mentioned earlier, it's a very key piece. Some projects will require studies, outreach, whether it's parking removal, lane reduction, and then final council approval. So with that, I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that report. Council, any questions from the council? Questions? Councilmember O'Neill.
Thank you for the very interesting report, and I'll have some comments later. I know Councilmember Hardy and I have had a fairly close connection with this report, and I know I think there's a lot of interest out in the community. One of the things that I've been, we've had I've some various interactions. There's the pedestrian report still to come and the creek trail study, and there's some overlap between those reports and how they're going to impact with the bike plan. Do we know what the time schedule is to see the creek trail study and the PED plan?
So the PED plan is actually, the draft is has been released online.
Oh, okay.
And then we're waiting, it's the first draft. I believe public comment ends on October 2nd. Per our schedule, we do want to bring it to council for approval roughly in February of next year. With regards to the Creek Trail master plan, that effort's been a long time effort. We just recently met with the Water District, and they had a pretty significant amount of feedback. So that's causing us a little bit of concern. The Creek Trail master plan, which I'll go into some detail, involves quite a few jurisdictions, whether it be the PUC, the Water District, you name it. I think we're talking to those folks, Caltrans, High Speed Rail. So it's become a little more complicated than I think everybody originally anticipated. I believe that one is going to push out probably potentially to 2021. We do have a lot of work to do there.
Okay. Well, let me just try one other question. I'll put it in the form of a question at least. I feel like I'm back on Jeopardy. One of the things that I thought was very interesting in the bike plan was the, I guess what you call the bicycle level of traffic stress, and the strong and fearless, enthusiastic and confident, interested but concerned, not currently interested. And so the biggest number is 50 to 60% interested but concerned. And to me, this kind of also plays into, we're getting all these emails, and some emails are asking for us to kind of have more of a reach goal in terms of what we look at mode share for biking, like we're trying to get to 5% and why we're at 2%. And then there's some people who have very strong opinions, and I respect that, and they're detailing their case very strongly, that they just don't think that bikes should be on streets, and streets are for cars, and we're being, kind of looking to me like looking at status quo, and I hate to say it, but if you kind of listen to what the teenagers are telling us, it's like they don't want to hear us talking about yesterday and status quo anymore. So my question is, when you look at that 50 to 60% number, and I don't know if what Jeff feels, like in terms of that's typical for a city or not, do we have a sense that if, like how many people do we think we would move into being more in the strong and fearless, or strong but they don't have to be fearless because they've got a good facility? I mean, how many people do we think we would actually could move into that, the percentage for biking as for mode share, if we can complete significant portions of this plan? Does that make sense?
It does. So, I think one of the key things with the mode share discussion is that, what we're really trying to do is change people's behavior, right? And to change the culture. So we do have a lot of, your classic suburban streets that do have some space for some treatment. And we do have bicycle facilities on quite a few of those. So the plan to some degree doubles down on some of those streets where you have a bicycle lane today, your standard bike lane. What it does, it'll potentially put in a buffer, right? And that helps people kind of go from one category to the next. I don't think we're going to get, the strong and fearless up to a pretty sizable amount, because, you're talking about a pretty significant shift. But, to some degree, that is the category we're targeting, the interested and concerned, because those are the folks that, feel like they want to, they may want to ride a bike, but they're just not comfortable going down a certain street because, there's just, there's the speed, the adjacent speed, like Great America Parkway, the speed is very intimidating. So we do want to, the plan does recognize those routes and does try to, once again, does try to double down in terms of investing further into those facilities. But, those will come at come with some decisions to make, which, was one of the key things we wanted to highlight for the council, because, we could be coming back to council, in the near future with a project that, where you'll have competing interests. And, ideally at that point, we'll have some additional data to present that shows you what we could attain. One of the key things to recognize is other cities and their progress. So like, for instance, San Jose is investing pretty heavily in bicycle facilities, and their mode share, in certain areas has changed, but citywide, it's a pretty big leap. So to some degree, time will tell. And then when we went forward with the 5% mode share within our bike plan, we based that on a couple things, pretty aggressive and vibrant discussions with our BPAC in terms of, how do we get to where we want to be without somewhat being lofty? But then on top of that, trying to be realistic. We didn't want to put in numbers that where we were never going to attain, because that would be irresponsible to some degree. We wanted to put in something that we felt like we could attain within that time period. So, but it will be, data will tell us over time whether or not we're going to able to get to those numbers that we're searching for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Chahal.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the report. I have one question is, Mountain View have almost 3 times the commuter rate than we have over here. And that's despite our safety record is one of the best, if I look at the data. So what is Mountain View doing, what we are not doing, where they have a 6%, like 3 times the commuter data than us?
Well, I think, we'd like to attribute it to 2 factors. One being that, they have certain kind of high-tech businesses that truly promote it. Like, for instance, they may have bike share with those high-tech businesses within those cities, which is part of our plan to do more outreach with it in that regard. But from what I've understood, they have invested pretty heavily in their bicycle infrastructure. So, the theory being the more you invest, the more comfortable people may ride. Sorry, the more comfortable it may be for people to ride, and then therefore increasing the numbers. So we have invested over time, but I believe Mountain View has invested more than Santa Clara at this point.
Oh, okay. So my idea is like whatever we can do to learn from them, that would be so great, so that we can have a better idea on that. And that's it. Thank you.
They have Google Bikes in Mountain View.
Within
I don't like to name names, so.
Oh, yeah. Councilmember Watanabe.
Thank you. Thank you for the report, Mike. I know that this is definitely a labor of love and a lot invested. And actually, I wish my husband was the one that was sitting here right now to ask the questions, because he's the bike rider in our family. And but just a couple of questions or just comments based on some of the things that you said. Number one, I actually was at a meeting last night with the Water District, myself, and talking about the levees out on the Guadalupe. But we were talking about, one of the topics that came up was recreation. And they were actually surprised to know that the Guadalupe is utilized as much as it is for bicycles, as much as it is for people just recreationally walking, running, or just being out there. So it's definitely we were telling them great way for people to commute, like from San Jose, say, to Sunnyvale, or even Fremont in some cases. So, I see it's probably one of the Creek Trail reports that'll come back later on, but it's definitely well utilized. And I have to say, the last couple of days, I don't know if it's just people coming from the other side of the Guadalupe, from North San Jose, from North First Street. There are a lot more bike riders, I've noticed, in North Santa Clara. And it's good to see, because that's the thing that we talk about all the time, is we want to get people out of their cars. So I have been taking notice of that, and I just think that we're on the right path here. So again, thank you for all your work.
Thank you. I don't see any more council comments. I'm going to go to the public now, and then the council can make their comments after. Start with Eric Linskog, and then John Cordes after that. If you'd like to queue up. Welcome, sir.
Hi, my name is, well, thank you, Mayor and council members, for the opportunity to speak here today. So my name is Eric Linskog. I don't live in Santa Clara, I live in Cupertino. I live in Cupertino and I work in San Jose, so I commute by bicycle through your city, pretty much on a daily basis. And partly I do it because you get exercise, but to a large degree, it's just because it's pretty fast. If I go by car, it'll take me 35 minutes. If I go by bike, it'll take me 45 minutes. Just a little bit more congestion, I'll be on par. So I'm thinking, this situation probably will help that, up that percentage of bikers over time. Assuming we have built the bicycle facilities to enable that. If we haven't done that, we'll just be stuck in a traffic jam. So that's the situation I think we don't want to be in. I've taken a look at this bicycle pedestrian plan, and I find, a lot of improvements that I've been looking for. There's some maybe that are not there, but then there are others that are, are there that I maybe didn't, think of. And I really do think we need to create better bicycle facilities, because when you do have those better bicycle facilities, the people will come. It's very clear that on routes with better facilities, there's more bikers, like, for example, along Santa Tomasa Queen Creek Trail, one example in the city. Anyway, my recommendation to the council would be to approve this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. John Cordes, and then Betsy Migas after that. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Gilmore and esteemed council members. John Cordes speaking on behalf of Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition and all our members in Santa Clara and the surrounding areas. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. The plan before you tonight reflects the desires of many for a safer and more active Santa Clara. The plan demonstrates how forward-looking Santa Clara can be in tackling important challenges of our time. I want to thank you and your staff for developing a great plan for the next 10 years. Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition thinks the plan is very progressive and will help Santa Clara achieve important goals, climate impact, transportation mode shift, and increase safety for everyone. We particularly want to commend the plan for including protected intersections and more than 20 miles of protected bikeway. These facilities will encourage the 60% of residents who want to use a bike but consider it unsafe to start riding. As strong as the plan is, we'd like to request 2 improvements. One is to increase the bike mode share to 2026 to 7% instead of 5%. SVBC's goal for the entire county is to get to 10% bike share by 2025, and we'd like to have a little bit more help in Santa Clara. The other change we'd like to see is to start the Vision Zero plan sooner. We'd like to see Santa Clara adopt the Vision Zero by policy in 2020 and develop the Vision Zero plan by 2022. Please be more aggressive than the current recommendation to start in 2024. Vision Zero is a key step to meet the mode shift targets by making key roadways in Santa Clara safer, especially the El Camino Real. We're glad to see that the protected bikeways on El Camino Real is the #1 project. We agree with this designation. Cities up and down the peninsula are coming to the same realization. Making El Camino Real safer for people walking and biking improves the quality of life and safety for everyone and is good for local businesses. Thank you for your time, and please approve this plan with those requested changes.
Thank you very much. Betsy, and then Chris Hoden. Welcome.
Hi, Betsy Magus. Recently, a neighbor on New Hall in Saratoga posted on Nextdoor looking for a carpool for her child, a high school freshman at Santa Clara High this year. A 14-year-old should be able to bike that distance. It's a level 2 miles, but I doubt that option ever occurred to the neighbor who posted. The reason we're getting an extra 4 or possibly 8 miles per day from Mom's Taxi is that there is no bike-friendly route that way. Many places in this city lack bike-friendly connections. Bicycling is a necessary last-mile connections between our homes, offices, shops, and transit. Often the last mile is more like 2 or 3. Our trail is not bad, but it's not enough by itself. It's closed during events, maintenance, flooding, and darkness. There are no homes, businesses, or shops on the trail, just one park and a stadium. Going anywhere else means riding on surface streets. Ask anyone who doesn't bike very much why not, and they'll usually say safety. Every other reason is a distant second. Uninviting and hostile streets are still our biggest barrier to more people riding bicycles. I'd like to encourage you not only to adopt the bicycle plan, but also to implement it on or ahead of schedule and to work to accelerate the schedule, and especially the highest priorities from especially accelerate the highest priorities from the 20 years it currently lists. The plan only makes bicycling safer and more accessible when we implement it. I'd also like to ask that we begin to work on Vision Zero sooner rather than later. Why should we wait to make a goal of improving bicycle and pedestrian safety? Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, and then Mike Benston. Good
Hi,
evening.
good evening. My name is Chris Howden. I live nearby in District 5, right across the street. And one of the things that I love the best, or love the most about living here in Santa Clara, is how bikeable it is. And our great weather, our flat surfaces, make bicycling an ideal way for me and other Santa Clarans to get around. My children cycle to Santa Clara High School along Benton Street, which unfortunately doesn't have a bike lane. My wife bikes to the farmer's market every weekend. I bike to work. I bike on the weekends for exercise. So it's actually a very bikeable city. But one drawback is that most of our streets were designed only for cars and trucks in mind. And drivers who speed, many of them with a phone in one hand and coffee in the other hand, make cycling and walking unnecessarily dangerous at this point in time. So for this reason, I would encourage you to please adopt the Santa Clara Bicycle Plan update with the Bike Coalition recommendations. And I think this plan will make our streets safer for everyone and make our environment cleaner and bring Santa Clara up to speed with our surrounding cities. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mike Benston. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Michael, live in Santa Clara. I've done for about 5 years. I am encouraged that we're working on improving the bike plan and updating that. I could always wish for more, and I could in particular wish for the Vision Zero to influence the plan a little bit ahead of time than 5 years in the future. But I am looking forward to being able to get around in the city without having to use the car, and I look forward to an environment that does not discourage people from choosing the mode of transportation they would prefer. So I wish you luck with the plan. I wish it fills in some of the gaps that we cyclists notice every time we are on the bikes or out there walking. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else? Please come forward. Good evening.
Hi, thank you. I've been living in Santa Clara for about 10 years. And so my son has just started at Santa Clara High School. And so, as another gentleman noted, there is no real bike path to go there. And so that is an issue for me as he's riding. And so, so I wanted to come here to ask to not only to put in a bike path, which I see as a part of the bike plan, but also to possibly accelerate that to put as much, because it looked, I may have misunderstood, but it looked like it said something like funding to be obtained by 2026, which is obviously far away. And so I'm hoping that whether the city can look at in terms of allocating money or things like that, but in terms of just trying to provide a safe route for our students. And so, and also I think a lot more students would be taking as the other woman also mentioned. So I do appreciate if you could try to consider that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else? Please come forward. You're the last member of our public in the audience, so welcome.
We all like biking, but I'm here for one other thing. When you guys are starting your meeting a half hour earlier, which means I'm at Walsh in Martinville or something like that, down there at Walsh area, when you guys let the public just to speak on anything that's not on the agenda.
Okay, let us finish with this item.
That's
and
what I was
then-
going to ask you.
Yes,
You got this, and
absolutely.
you'll give
We
me
can
one
come
more
back.
chance.
Yes,
Thank
for
you.
sure. No problem. All right. I don't see any other member of the public that hasn't spoken already. So let's go back. Councilmember Hardy. Can you turn on your
Thought it was up. I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
motion to close the public hearing? And a second?
Second.
Actually, this isn't a public hearing, is it? No, it's not, but we'll do that anyway. All right. I just noticed that. Sorry,
Still
I'm
public
getting a
anyway.
little.
They're still the public.
And I'd like to
All
make
right.
a motion to accept the update for the bike plan 2018. I recognize that some people feel it doesn't go far enough, but that goal of 5% is more than double. As chair of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, we've worked long hours on this, and I'm excited to see some of these improvements. By passing this, we can make this part of our capital improvement plan, start working on some of those, and apply for grants.
Thank you. So that was a motion. Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, motion and second. And thank you, Councilmember Hardy, for your work on the bicycle committee. It's a lot of hard work, and so we appreciate all the time that you spent. So we have a motion and a second. Any other council comments? Teresa O'Neill? Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add a few other comments. And I thought the report was very well done, and I know that the BPAC, and I know Councilmember Hardy took over for me and has done, I'm sure has done a really great job. You know, I know that they took this charge extremely seriously. I think the most passionate group of people that I know in Santa Clara are people who are cyclists. They are just devoted to promoting bicycling as a way of life. So I just wanted to make a few comments, and I know that there's people out in the community who are very upset, but I think that we have to start looking, we have to become the change. And you know, one of the things is Caltrans, the builder of every highway in California, has adopted a complete streets policy and philosophy. If you talk to any of their directors, if Caltrans can, Santa Clara can. And one of the things I wanted to point out is the data in the report is based through 2017. And unfortunately, sadly, we have had an uptick in serious accidents, and we've had several fatalities. It was almost, it felt very badly. Detective Cusimano came and spoke to the BPAC and talked about we haven't had, everything's really great. We've really, we're on a downward trend. And then in the week, just in the weeks following him coming and giving that presentation, we had, I think, at least 2 people get killed. So the accidents have been up again, which is something I think we need to be concerned about. I mean, the fatalities in the Bay Area, if you look at San Francisco and San Jose, it is horrible. And yes, there are people on bicycles who do not act appropriately, are not responsible, but there's also a lot of, I mean, you know, I can think of the close calls that I've had in the past month, and then people are like, you know, or you roll down the window, my bad, my bad. Yeah, you almost took me out, thanks. Also, there are Measure B funds coming and available through VTA, so we need to make sure that we've got our requests in there, and I'm going to try to see what I can do to move that forward. Thank you, John Cordes, for reminding me about that. So we can really, I've told VTA, I said, I want the next ribbon cutting you have me go to, or next announcement, it's got to be for a bicycle or a pedestrian project. And also, I want to say, Santa Clara has relied a lot on grants for a lot of things, and our bike program is really totally funded, except for the staffing, and probably a lot of that is coming through grants. It's time to we need to put some skin in the game here, and it's time for us to be making our own investments. We can't just rely on grants totally, because to me that says that we don't have the level of commitment that we should. So I'm glad that we're talking about finally putting our own money in from our general fund. And certainly we can supplement it, but that, I know that funders, oh, I think that looks much more impressive when you've got some of your own money going in. And that's why almost any of these federal programs or the state programs or VTA, they're gonna look for a match. So, so I think it's great that if we, like I said, if we want people to change, we have to model that change ourselves. So I enthusiastically will support the motion. And again, thank you to all the staff and the folks from Jeff and everybody from Alta, and especially those BPAC members and the members of the community who were so vocal and put, you know, all their comments on the website, and probably more comment than anything we've ever had. So thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank the staff, the BPAC committee, and members of the community who've weighed in on this, really on both sides, because this is really a both-side issue. It's unfortunate we have a lot of bike accidents because there's more traffic on the roads, because we don't have a great public transportation system to get cars off the roads that are hitting the bicyclists. It's just terrible what's happening. So I would like to see, I know there's a priority list, but I would also like to see the priorities for the bike lanes to get the children to school. I think the safe routes to school should be a priority over everything else. But we'll talk about that as we dedicate funding and other things for some of these projects. And I also want to remind everyone, I know our staff said it in the first place, but you know, a lot of these projects still, we have to public outreach before we do any of these things like El Camino and Prunage especially. And I know the study's coming on Prunage, so we still, you know, have to outreach to our community before we do make changes. But I'm going to support the motion, and this is great work. So let's start, you know, putting some money behind some of this and get it going. So seeing no other comments, we have a motion and a second to approve the plan. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. So now we're going to go back to public presentations. If any member of the public has a presentation on something that's not on the agenda, please come forward. Oh, here you are. Thank you.
What do you know?
Yes.
And for everybody's information, Teresa O'Neill is a hardcore bicyclist.
We knew that.
I see her all over the place, and there she really is.
Hardcore.
It's that time of year again. The football season has started, and these guys are out in force. Luckily, we have a health department in the county of Santa Clara that has decided they're going to put some effort into trying to eliminate this going on. 3 of you council people have not seen these pictures. Yes, that is, the chef is smoking a cigarette. The chef is touching himself. They have no sink, no soap, no sanitizer, no gloves. They do that, they touch people's food, and they serve it to them. Right now, the police department are not enforcing these people for not having a license, going through the same rigorous background check, going to the principal's office for me every year. That's what it feels like when I have to redo my permits and everything. It feels like going to the principal's office, but I do it. I take care of business. The health department loves me, but I'm here to try to get you guys to pass something that says no more in our city. They take a little bit of money away from me. I'll work it out. We'll get it back. So if you really want to see these up close, that's what they're doing anytime you touch their food. Next thing is that my sales were up this Sunday. Thank you very much for the people who are in charge of feeding our police officers. They were given donuts for breakfast. A donut has 0 good for you. If you got to work overtime because some bad things happen, bad things are happening around our country right now, these guys are not going to be able to go the extra hours and be full strength, ready to fend off whoever is harming us. Good meal for breakfast is very important, not donuts. So they came over and bought hot dogs. So they had plenty of energy to deal with anything that happened. And also, I witnessed some stuff going on with the Uber drivers. The police officer was taking pictures of a license plates or something like that. Now they're doing to keep it moving. But people going to the game was saying insults to the guy out there doing it. I don't like seeing that. I support the men and women that wear uniforms that protect us. And anytime somebody does anything bad to them, we should stand up to that and make sure we figure out a way to never let that happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thank
And
you
if you
for,
want to say anything to me, I'm willing to hear you.
well, thank you for bringing all those items. The first is the illegal carts that are out there. We do have a law or ordinances against them. So I don't know, we'll refer that back to staff to make sure that that's enforced.
I understand from last Chief Sellers that he was instructed to kind of stand down from that. And they have officers that are allowed to protect the health department and guys who are giving tickets out because they have no defense. And quick story, one time one tried to sell on my train station in the big soccer game, and I threatened him, and he understood he had to leave. And when I told him the health department will come and get you, he laughed and said, it doesn't matter. He's on probation for beating up a health inspector, so it doesn't really matter. Judge, they throw him in jail, they spend the night, they come out, they go right back to it. They don't really care.
Well, I don't know about standing down or anything like that, but
Yeah.
we'll refer that to the city manager's office. And then
But-
we'll also refer the food issue. We want to make sure our public safety is well-fed for the work that they do. The donuts can come here to City Hall.
I like
Okay.
the increase in sales, but
We want to make sure, oh, sorry about that. And what was the last item? That was the third thing. Oh, food, donuts. What was
I
the
don't
third
know.
thing you
I
mentioned?
just kept going on.
No. Oh, the Uber
Oh,
drivers.
the Uber drivers who
And I
drop
see we have
over on
Assistant Chief
Lafayette.
Winter here that took all that down as well regarding the Uber drivers, because we don't want all that,
No,
people that are trying to do their job to be, harassed and screamed at and everything else. So
No, because those are the
that's
people,
unacceptable.
when you have bad, they're the first ones running towards the explosions, towards the
Exactly. We
gunfire.
want to
They're
protect
not
our
running away. They're going to go down to see
public safety.
To
So
see some people disrespecting, that's just not right.
no, we appreciate that. So thank you for coming
No
and
problem.
reporting all this to us. And your hot dogs are excellent. I know I've had them personally, so.
And I'll be
Um,
back because
right.
we talked. and-
Okay. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you
Thank you for
very
your time.
much. All
Thank
right,
you.
so I'm going to go back to the original agenda now. I think we're at the end of the agenda. The next item we have is reports of members and special committees. Anyone, Councilmember Watanabe?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what I talked about earlier. I attended the Water District's meeting last night pertaining to the Guadalupe and the levees, and a plan in place to strengthen the levees, and also just find ways to just put a flood protection plan in place, because what's happened over the years is, I guess the Guadalupe is all fresh water, and so the vegetation out there has grown exponentially, and so the water is not being able to travel through the river as a result. And so they have to find a way, and they've already started ways to start pulling up the vegetation and dredging it a bit and clearing out the river so that the water can flow more freely, but they also have to do it in a special way just so that, there still will be vegetation, the environment and the animals, aren't impacted by it as well. So it's going to be an ongoing process, and they're looking for community input. I mean, the meeting was at Catherine Hughes last night. There was a good turnout. It could have been better, but it's just good to know that they've got this plan in place, because there are some residents, and of course, Eulestac is right there by the Guadalupe, that could be impacted if we have a really bad rainy season like we did last year, and the levee overflows. I mean, not that they think it's going to happen, but they know that there needs to be some improvements made to the levees. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes, I just wanted to pass on the word to everybody out there who's watching or listening, that this is National Rail Safety Month, and in my role as our representative to VTA, want to remind people, because I know there was a lot of the emails talking about what stops faster, a car or a bicycle. Well, let me tell you, something that doesn't stops even more slowly is a light rail train. And we have had several unfortunate incidences lately where, and I hate to say it, a number of kids on their way to school with earbuds in that are like going or throwing up, trying to move up the arm, or going around and thinking, I don't know what they're thinking that they're going to be faster. So we've had several unfortunate episodes, and we have had a couple fatalities. So I would just like to please remind everybody to be extremely careful when you're near the Caltrain tracks or the light rail tracks over out on the north side. And to look, here's something that I didn't really know, that one of the rail people told me, that oftentimes when they're scheduling trains, they schedule, so they're actually, oftentimes they'll be crossing the same point at about the same time, and a lot of pedestrian or car accidents happen. People look one way, they think it's clear, they go out, and they get hit by a train coming in the opposite direction. So please, everybody, do not risk your life to save 30 seconds. Let the train go by.
Councilmember Hardy, and then Vice Mayor Mahan.
I just wanted to remind everyone about the Parade of Champions this Saturday. So did I steal your thunder? That will occur in close to Buxer Middle School, and the parade starts at 11. For those of us going to be in it, lineup is at 10:15.
All right, thank you. I don't see any other reports. City Manager, Executive Director.
No additional items. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. We have our tentative meeting calendar. I have no adjournments, so is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Meeting adjourned.